All right, there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We are back. I'm extremely excited for my current guest, the superstar, the one and only White Gold. For anyone who isn't aware of White Gold, I feel like they may have been living under a bridge because, man, it's pretty incredible the story that you've been through. Obviously, to me, you need no introduction. You've been on Habits, Bad One, You Gon Learn, obviously on the Eminem albums, but you've also been a producer for Cameron, Pusha T, Kevin Gates, Joe Budden. Literally, the list of names that come up are like the goats of hip hop, and it's pretty incredible for me to be able to speak to you. I've always wondered, how does it feel when you're kind of the list of things that you've done are read off? Like, how does that feel for yourself?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, it kind of causes me to like reflect or something and just be like, damn, like, I came a pretty long way. Sometimes I don't really put the full focus of like the totality of my career. I don't really put that in focus unless like somebody says like, "Oh, you worked with this and this and this," and I just remember all the stories and the journey and everything like that. So it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to like be like, "Hey, like you did this."
Yeah, it's weird because it's like you only really live in the moment. You don't live in the past. You don't live in the future. You're just kind of
Yeah.
like the moment we're having right now is the moment we're living in, and then once it's gone, it's gone. And I guess that's
Yeah.
like a weird thing of like you achieved something great, but then once you've lived it, it's like, okay, what's the next thing?
Exactly. That's how I feel. All right, so like you definitely understand like when songs get released, right? That's how I feel. I'm like, oh man, okay, so like we did all this work, the song is out, people like it, but now it's like, now I got to do something else. Like now me and M got to do another one. So it's like it sucks in a kind of way that like you can't live out like the adoration or whatever of people like hearing it for the first time, and I'm on my 400th listen and the mix is this and that, and I'm just like, man, what I would give to like listen to it for the first time.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that has always made me feel like a little bit sorry for artists is that you all put in so much work. Like it's
Yeah.
not like we get the finished product or we get the product that you're ready to release. So we get to turn around and go, "Oh, that is such a good song," or like that really hit. But you know the journey behind it. You know all the work and all the hours, and so there's
Yeah.
nothing new in it at that point.
Yeah. It's a thing for a lot of artists that like, making the songs and everything like that kind of causes like them to be fatigued, for the music. And for me, it's like, it's a constant battle of like still being appreciative that like you made the song and then like hearing it and trying to know that you put your best self into it. Sometimes you can lose yourself and just be like, man, this is not good or whatever. When somebody like walks in and is like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, no, I've hated this for like 4 weeks now. you
How,
know?
how do you overcome that when you go through that?
I don't I think you just kind of just reconcile the fact that like it's not yours once you put it out. It's now everybody else's. So like you're doing a service ultimately, right? You're doing a service. So you gotta like just put yourself in the shoes of being like, hey, I'm a servant, even though like I think you should be totally selfish in making music and love like what you're doing and do it for yourself. But once you're out of that like music making process of like working on the songs and doing all of that, I think you should just get into the mode of being like, I'm delivering a product for the people and it's going to be theirs. It's not yours anymore. It's going to be theirs. So put yourself in that once it gets released, that's it. That you should be free, once it gets released. Like you've released yourself of this burden that you were carrying. You're carrying 10 tons of songs and you release it into this world. People love it. Everybody's cheering about it. Some people hate it. Some people are like, what the fuck? Like, I thought it was going to sound like this or whatever. Like, that's just the beauty of it, right? Like, some people are going to like it, some people are not. And all of that kind of what makes, making music special is like every, emotion that goes into it, like from the fans, is kind of what brings everything to life.
When did you realize that? How long did it take
Oh,
you to
man.
accept that?
Maybe like 5 years ago.
Hey, wow.
It hasn't been that long, because before I was always of the mindset of like, it's got to be perfect for me. Like, I got to be able to like hear it and be absolutely happy with it. But it's like, it's not really about that. I was reading, no, I was watching an interview with Havoc. I forget where it is, but like he said he had to reconcile with making mistakes in the records, right? Like there's some Mobb Deep records that like, the drums are not 100% right. And he had to like live with that. And then there's one song that always like comes to mind about that. Swiss Beats saying that like on So Appalled, there's like a break in his voice or whatever. Like when he does one hand in the air, if you don't really care, there's like some imperfection there, right? And he told Kanye about it, and Kanye would not like fix it. And he said it drove him crazy. But at the same time, it was like, I loved that part. So like that part wouldn't have been there for me to like be able to be like, man, this like little skip Swiss Beats part is like, it just makes me feel some type of way. You just never know. That's what I'm saying. It's like not yours once it goes out.
You know what it does? It makes you human.
Yeah.
I think that's what it does in the music. Like, because I think speaking of Havoc, I think there was a story about the beat Shook One's part 2. And Havoc didn't like the beat. He was overanalyzing it. And it was Prodigy who was like, you cannot get rid of this beat. He almost just cut it and scrapped it. And I mean, it's been one of the iconic hip hop beats of all time.
It might be the iconic hip hop beat. Like imagine him just getting rid of it. Like we would all be like, we would all be worse for it. Because that's such an amazing record. Like people have freestyled over it. It's been in countless movies. It's hip hop, So it's like once you start making music, like just know that like it's for you at some point, but also it's like for everybody else. Once you like release it, you can't, argue about it. That it's hard though, because it's like you put in a lot of work. It's like cooking a 2-hour meal and then taking 5 seconds to eat it.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn, like I put in all that work in the kitchen and it's like you guys consumed it in like 2 minutes, Yeah, but like, that's how it's supposed to be.
This very conversation is to me why, because people have asked me, like, you interview musicians and you interview rappers, what do you think of AI taking over music? And this conversation is why AI won't be able to replicate music and won't be able to take it over.
AI is never going to be able to like, replicate human emotion. I watched the Ben Affleck video about it. And he like broke it down perfectly. He's like, it's gonna take some jobs, like virtual effects and all of that. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a tool. It's gonna be able to like turn your shirt blue and do all of this, but it's never gonna be able to take away like human performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that it can't do.
And also the time. The thing that always has started to really impress me is the amount of sweat, blood, and tears that goes into any piece of art. Like the 400 hours that you put in, or the 400 listens. To me, that becomes embodied in the end product. The artist who has to paint it for 2 years, that becomes in. But the part of that is the journey of the creation itself. And if it's instantaneous, it no longer means anything. It's no longer that worthy because it's easier to create, it's easier to throw away. But when it takes time, when it takes thought, and it takes direction, and the artist has to find something within themselves to create it, that's what art really is. And I think that cannot be replicated.
Yeah, and it kind of can serve as like a form of self-discipline, you know. There's this practice where these monks will use salt, and they take like days and days and days to like make like a portrait or whatever with salt, right? And they're just sitting there and they're doing all this shit with salt. And like once they get like the big picture, they just wash it away. You know, it's like, oh my God, I just put like 2 weeks into doing this, and then I just washed it away. You know, and it's just like it's a practice of like self-discipline, and just knowing that like not everything that you do just because you don't see the result isn't like meaningless. You know,
That it makes me feel like all those musicians who never released their music. Like how many songs are out there that could have changed hip hop, could have changed the world of
so many.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you make like music? Does that like, is there a part of you that's like, I don't know about this, but I would love to put it out? Like there's this internal monologue of like, if I don't put it out, I'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately I'm one of those that just like has tons of music on their hard drive, and I'm always looking for like perfect way to release. And that's just something about me, and I'm just like, oh, man, I just wish I could like put it out in this way. I probably have like 5 albums worth of material. Wow. Yeah, like a ton of material. And just I will be like, my manager gets on me all the time. So like we just gotta find creative ways of releasing it. And but yeah, for me it's just like I know it shouldn't be on the hard drive. You know, if it gets one listen, whatever, that's one person's life that's like tiny bit different. You know? Like another, you know, you just never know who's even listening or whatever, you know. So if you can like help somebody, if you can, you know, empathize with someone can empathize with the music, I think you're all the better for it. You know, that's just reason enough to not want to keep your music on the hard drive. I mean, some people should though, because some people are not good. Like, let's just, you just gotta know. You gotta know. Like, you just gotta be real with yourself and just be like, am I good? Like, are people really gonna like this music now, or should I get better? You know, and then put something out that I'm actually proud of.
Yeah. Do you know what the only way I can really understand that, because I don't make my own music, because I know, like when you said know your skill set, I know my skill set. But I've definitely seen like podcasters who just release so much. Like there's no schedule. They're just like 3-minute episode here. And I think that if they can get to 1,000 releases, then that's all that matters. And sometimes, and by all means, I have a lot to continue to improve on all the time. I'm like, these are all the things I need to get better at. But that being said, there are definitely some people where I'm like, you shouldn't. Like you just find your lane. This isn't it. I know it sounds cool and it's sexy. You like the idea of it, but just you need to find your own niche.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I don't think it's wrong for something not being for everybody. You know, I don't think everything is for everybody. I don't go into a hospital and be like, yeah, like put this shit on me. Let me go and operate.
That would be a good show. That'd
Right?
be a good show.
Hey man, yeah, put this shit on you. Like, let's
Yeah, we
go,
just
scalpel.
White Gold just goes to different workplaces and he just
Yeah.
goes, I'm gonna do this shit. Oh, that'd be amazing.
Like I'm just gonna do this first try, Yeah, so it's like you gotta work at it. Whatever it is, like you gotta you gotta do it justice. Like things take time, things take knowledge, things take action, and preparation and all this shit. Like you have to be respectful of all of those steps, you know. So some people try to skip steps, never works. Or it'll work for a second and then it'll come crashing down. And then they're wondering like, damn, I thought I was like there. Like what happened? It's like you skipped a bunch of steps and now the floor just, went from under you and you're done.
Yeah. Well, I think about like the way you got your opportunity, like when Royce to 5 9 reached out to you, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that to me is the perfect example of like if you didn't do the work,
Yeah.
then you would have had that, and then they're like, actually, no.
Exactly. Like and the thing about it too is it's like if I didn't like start off as a producer, like I was like I've always loved lyrics, right? Lyrics has just been a thing about me since I was a little kid. I used to write lyrics in notebooks. I used to listen to artists on like a boombox. I press play, listen to the line, write the line, rewind, press play, like just so I could get the full verse and recite the verses with them. Like lyrics have just been a thing for me. So it's just so funny that like I got into production, but I'm glad that I got into production first because now it serves as a way for me to just make full songs by myself without any help at all. Like I can make an album from A to Z by myself, And it's just so weird that like it came at a time when I was like ready, you know? Like if it came a year before, I wouldn't have been ready. I would not have been ready. It's just like some things are just like it's meant for you to stay the course, it's meant for you to put in the work. Um yeah, if I wasn't at Warner, you know, with Rook from Justice League and him giving me pointers on set, like we'd be in the studio like over the weekend and I just can go to him and be like, what do you think about this? Like, how should I do this? Help me set up a template for like, for my vocals or whatever. And he's just like giving all this information that like probably is like worth so much money, like a wealth of knowledge that he's just giving to me for free. And I get it from so many other people. Like without those kind of steps, kind of like fueling my ambition to get better and my drive to get better, and like those things meeting and coalescing, like I would not be where I am. So don't skip steps.
Can I ask you, what do you think is the difference? You said that a year before you wouldn't have been ready. What was the difference in 12 months between where you think you were at versus what made you ready? Like, when you reflect on that change?
Yeah, I feel like what made me ready is the fact that like I was just so much more confident in my writing, right? So I hadn't been writing that long. I'd been producing forever, so it's like that was nothing for me. But like writing, I got into writing because I was in a session and I was just giving ideas, and they were like, "Dude, like, do you write? Because these are fantastic ideas," And I was like, "Absolutely not. I just produce. Like, I'm not worried about writing, but this is a fun session between friends, And like, I felt comfortable enough to give out, some ideas, and they were like, "No, like." You need to like work on it. And so that kind of prompted me to sit in the studio by myself and go through the steps of being embarrassed about, what I was putting pen to paper, and, figuring out my voice and how I wanted to record myself. Like, all of this is like stuff that excites me, and like being able to research and go into magazines and see what equipment was used and what techniques were used. All of that, like, wealth building. For me, I call it wealth building because it's just knowledge that amassing. And like, if I did that, if the opportunity came when I was in that process of just like putting everything together and, making it mine, I don't know if I would have that placement with Eminem,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because how did you figure out your voice? Because I think, and like personally, and most of my friends will say like, you're not the biggest fan of non-hip hop hooks, like non-rapping hooks. Like that historically has not been my favorite thing. And I gotta say, every time you come on, I'm like, this is so good. Like, and like it genuinely, because and now I feel like my music change is evolving, and like I'm appreciating different sounds sonically. But like, how did you find your own sound? Because it is incredibly unique. Like, I don't think there's anyone who does what you do with the feeling. I don't know. There's definitely something unique about you.
I think for me, honestly, I just like being able to express myself. So I just got in the studio and I was like, whatever comes out, like, see if you can hone it, So I just started doing a bunch of shit. Like, I love rapping. Um, I love singing as well. So like, I was just like, I don't know, just don't think about it. Just do what like the music tells you. And that's why I really like the fact that I got started producing first, because I know how to put emotion into the music. Like, I know what kind of emotion that I want out of a song. So once I have that, like, I feel like it's kind of easy once you know, like, all right, this beat is saying sad, or it's saying pensive, or, like, whatever like that beat is giving me, I know how to like reach it. And this is why I can't skip steps, because now I just know how to reach into every emotion and just pick it out like easily. I can write, like, I wrote Zeus in my cousin's basement in like 10 minutes. Like, I was, on FaceTime with T minus, and we were just talking, and he was like, "Oh man, like, congrats on the Eminem stuff." Like, and I was like, "You know what? I bet like we could get one." Like, and he was like, "All right, let me send you like 5 songs or whatever." And that was like the first song of the beats that he sent. And I was like, "You know what? Let me just jump off FaceTime real quick. I'll call you in like 10 minutes." Did it, sent it to him, and he was like, "What the fuck? Like, that was so fast." Like, but without being able to like figure out my whole style and just like know what I like and know what sounds right for me, I wouldn't have been able to do it that quickly. I wouldn't have been able to pull it. And I feel like once you know that, like, you can be real, and you can be like real intent with what you're doing, right? So it's not like by chance that you land on something good or anything like that. It's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I can do something with this like easily. And that's the point where I'm at, is like, any song that, or any beat that comes on, like, I just know what to do with it. I just know what to do. It's like I said, it's like a doctor that like is a gifted surgeon and just knows how to navigate the brain or the heart, and where the fucking ventricles are, and that type of stuff. It's because you just put in so much work that it's just muscle memory, you know? So I feel like, my style kind of developed out of just being a very, very like person that just loves to learn. You know, it just wasn't like by accident or anything like that. It's just like amassing knowledge and just being able to just like turn those things and make them my own.
Out of everything you said, there's so much that I would love to touch on. I think when
Oh yeah.
people ask me like, what's the hardest part about doing what I do, and I think the hardest part is that I have to choose
Yeah.
which lane we have to go down, and that's the hardest part. But yeah, I think it's fascinating because, I mean, you just threw the story out there that you just wrote Zeus in like 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
most people would be like, that's such a crazy story. Like, that is insane to be able to say, like, you've got this feature, it's coming out on the album. That song obviously speaks about Snoop Dogg, and it's kind of like and you wrote it in 10 minutes and you're like, done.
Yeah, I just wrote it and it was like done. Like it was during like I think it was like during the first year of COVID or whatever. Like it was during that summer of COVID, that first summer, and I was just like, and I think it's right when I found out that like, no, you know what? It was yeah, it was like right after it was the summer after um Music to Be Murdered By came out. So it was probably like that June or whatever. And yeah, I knew that like the next one was coming, the deluxe or was coming. So I was just like, you know what, like I want to work on some ideas. So I already had some ideas for different songs, but when T Minus sent me that one, I was like, I gotta send that one. You know, it was kind of like just shooting the shit and being like, yo, I know I could get some shit for us, and it just kind of worked in that way. It was like he sent the perfect beat. It was so easy to just work on it, and it turned out into whatever it did. Yeah.
Well, do you know the funniest thing is that me and my friends, this podcast started as us reviewing hip hop albums, and we reviewed Eminem Side B on Music to Be Murdered By. So we've reviewed Zeus with you on it, and it happened. I think we're in the 200s now with the podcast. It was in the 20s. So it's been, so we reviewed it a long, long time ago. I might send it to you in case you want to listen to our old review. But we have definitely reviewed it. To be honest, I don't want to set your expectations too high because we were just like kids of just talking shit. So
no, I love that though. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I never thought this would be the case, that I would be reviewing an album and then having the ability to talk to the person who made the music on that album. It's like, it is so weird how life works in that way.
I know. I mean, I think about the same thing. Like I wake up and I'm just like, shit, I don't have like a 9 to 5 to go to. People are like going to work. Like my work is just like going and to the computer and making music. It's something that I'm just like so appreciative about because it's like, it's my passion and I get to like live out my passion every day,
Yeah. I mean, you look happy when you talk about it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, dude, I could be like dead right now or, in jail. Like I grew up in the projects in the Bronx, like during the crack era in the 90s. Like it was bad, like I got stories for days. So just being able to be here and, have a wonderful daughter that I'm raising who like her whole life is like volleyball right now. And it's just like, I love it. Like, it's just like the most regular shit ever. But like, dude, this is like what it's about. Like,
Yeah. How do you have anything that encapsulates the story of what it was like growing up? Obviously, I don't come from that background. We're in different countries altogether. A lot of my fans have never experienced it either.
It's funny because, wait, where are you now?
I'm in Australia. I'm in Melbourne.
You're in Melbourne. One of my really, really good friends, she just moved there with her husband. Her husband's Australian. They were here, and she just moved there last December. So it'll be awesome. A year. It'll be a year now. Loving it. Like it's so funny because like she looks totally different now.
Really?
Yeah, like she looks totally. I'm like, you don't even look American anymore. Like you look Australian. And she's like, shut the fuck up. Oh, but yeah, she's yeah, it's just weird that like you can so many people are just from so many different places and there's different stories to tell. That's what makes life worth living, right? It's just getting to know people that are not like you. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for me, like growing up, it was just New York was bad. Like New York was bad. Like it was, I think I was going to school. I was walking to school by myself, like in the first or second grade. Like I'm like 6 or 7. Like I would never let my daughter oh, walk alone to school at that age. Like that's insane. I wouldn't even like leave her outside like my front door to play outside at that age. But like that's what it was. I used to walk to my school was like 10 minutes away. I remember just walking. I would have sometimes I would have friends with me or I would just be by myself or whatever and just it just became a thing like independence basically or go to the store and I'm so young and I'm like so scared, and like I almost got kidnapped as well.
Really?
Yeah, I almost got kidnapped by like a crackhead.
Fuck.
Yeah, I know. It was like me and my best friend. We were probably like 7 or 8 years old, I think. And we were playing. So there's like so where I grew up, like the buildings are like they're like really huge, project buildings. You're like 14 floors and maybe like 12 apartments on each floor, that kind of thing. Like so many things. And it was like buildings like that in like a big circle. And so like in within that circle, sometimes it would be like the front part of a building or the back part of a building. But they had like the basketball courts, they had like a grass area, they had like a playground, and that's where people would convene. And so um me and my friend were we were out there. His older brother um is playing basketball. So we're just like chilling in the grass, like playing, and this lady just comes and she's just like, y'all want watermelon? And we're like, no. And then she just grabs us and starts running with us. And we're like yelling, like, dude, it was like traumatic as fuck. I'm not even gonna lie. It was so traumatic. Um, she started running and like we caught the attention of my friend's brother and he came running and he pulverized her. Like he beat the shit out of her. Um, yeah, and I always remember I'm like, what the fuck was she trying to do? Like, and she was running she was running out of the projects for us. Like, if she was successful, like, what would have happened? I don't know. You know? But yeah, I've had guns pointed at me. Um, shit, I fucking fell down a well in China before when I was like 4 years old
I feel
in
like
West Africa.
what we're discovering is we need to do another episode where you just tell us the stories of you growing up.
Oh my God. Telling you stories of growing up would be like 2 hours of just like, what the fuck? Your life is so random. Like, that's how it would be. I'd be like, what? Like, how? You know? Yeah, but I've lived through a lot of shit, man. Like, with freaking junkies trying to stick me with needles when I was like on the steps and they were like on the steps as well and just having to like hop over them and they're like oh I used to have like nightmares about that shit.
Yeah. Of course you had nightmares about that. That
Yeah,
makes
my grandmother got robbed. So this was back then when so this is I'm dating myself, but like this was when elevators only had one button to call them. So whether they were going up or down, they would stop on your floor when you called them. They didn't have an up button or a down button, right? And so luckily, like one of our friends, she was going outside and she pressed it. He was taking her to the roof. You know, he like robbed her. He was taking her to the roof, but like it stopped on our floor, and she knew the guy, so he freaked out and ran out the elevator and into the steps and like out. And yeah, my grandmother was like super traumatized about that. But yeah, I was like 10. I remember I was like 10 years old. And after that, I was like, man, I'm not gonna let anybody fucking make me scared anymore. You know, it came at a point in time where I was just like, man, fuck it. You know, I was young, but I was just like, man, fuck this shit. Like I'm tired of being like scared, like to live. You know, and it just changed something. It changed something in my brain, man, forever.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, how does something like that and those stories of like, and that lived experience, how does that change your view of the world and the perception of the world?
I feel like it changed it at that time. Obviously not for the better. It hardened me. It made me weary of people. It made me go on the offensive a lot of times. Um, I was super aggressive. But I think like I talked to like a lot of my friends and like we were all just like super aggressive in fear of being attacked. So it was like a fear-based thing, right? Fear-based aggression. Like you didn't want somebody to do something to you, so you were like trying to be the toughest person that you could be, you know? Um I always tell my friends that like when I got to college, like the first week I was there, some kid, um, he said he was trying to like he was trying to be cool or whatever. Like so we had a meeting on our floor, um, with our residential assistant, the RA, right? This is a guy that's like an upperclassman, and he's basically like in charge of like order on the floor and like helps you with like if things like maintenance and all of that type of stuff needs to be done, we report it to him, and he goes to the school and helps get things fixed that kind of way. But this kid was he thought he was like being funny, but he said the n-word to me and
Huh.
like trying to like relate or something like that, and I just headbutted him. Yeah, I was like, "What?" Boom! And he was just like bleeding, like really, really, like bleeding everywhere. And the look that I got from the other people, because they were just in like sheer horror, I was like, "Oh my god! Like, am I like a savage or something like that?" Like, it just made me like, they're like, "What are you doing?" You know? And I was just ever since then, like I was just like, holy shit, like maybe what like how I grew up isn't the way to like be throughout life. That was like a pivotal point for me, man.
So what
Uh,
happened after that?
well, the guy he was mad or whatever, but like the RA was like, you know what, like you shouldn't have said the N word. Like let's let it die down, please. Like this is first week of school. Classes hadn't even started yet. Like we were still in like last week of August or something like that. So it's like, come on, like just let it go. Like, and yeah, he was just I just left him alone. He left me alone. He lived like right next door to me. Um, but one of his roommates is like my best friend. Like,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So it kind of worked out, but like I was really scared because I was just like, man, did I just jeopardize like me being here by doing that? And I was like, damn, am I like just gonna miss out on this experience because I'm gonna get expelled? It's like you gotta control yourself.
Yeah, it's fascinating though that when you're scared, you act in fear, and it often manifests in aggression because it's like, I don't want to show my fear, so I'm going to do and put on a show of the absolute opposite, which is hyper aggressive, which is just shutting that down. And I think that is just so interesting, is like what happens when you haven't dealt with the fear inside of you and the worry.
Yeah. It always manifests itself as violence. Always. Yeah. So I had to just deal with that and just be able to like use my words, and let things go, like, and just, it just totally like reframed how like I would conduct myself, because I just didn't want to be that person anyway. Like, I get it, but like it just wasn't something that I felt like it was gonna serve me in my adulthood, because the situation that I was in, being from the Bronx and everything, it's like unique to it. It's not a totally unique like American story, because there's ghettos everywhere in America, but like that's not all that exists, So it's like it's unique to those certain circumstances, but yeah, not everywhere. Not everywhere. So I had to learn how to grow and flourish, And then once I did, like things just, just became a lot easier. I was able to enjoy life so much because I wasn't worried about if somebody was doing something to me, or in anticipation of something going wrong and all of that. I was able to just kind of be in the present, like you said, and not, grasp at the past or reach for the future, just like grounded and have fun with my friends and laugh and that type of stuff,
I think that's such an important lesson to teach, is like just the ability to say, and it makes me sad when the sad fact is that there are ghettos and there are, places and lots of people who grow up in those circumstances, but the hope is that people can still flourish and that, you can still be resilient. And the hopefully is that those circumstances become less and less common over time.
Exactly. And I think with more awareness, more people given opportunity and not being scared of that, because a lot of times people are just people, but like the circumstances are what turns them into what they have to be, I knew so many people that were like super kind, super funny, very artistic or whatever, and they just were like freaking menaces, Like I'm talking about savage, like motherfuckers that will like tear your head off. But like if you knew them, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy is such a great person, man. Like he's smart and he has all of this stuff, but it's just like he has no opportunities where he lives. So the only thing he knows what to do is to fucking eat, and it's unfortunately it's eat other people, so he's gonna rob somebody, he's gonna rob this, or he's gonna fight, or he's gonna sell drugs, or he's gonna do this. But he doesn't want to. Most people don't want to. Like nobody really, like only a bozo really like aspires to be like a drug kingpin or anything like that, right? People are just doing it because they just want to survive, man. They just want to survive, and they want some kind of a modicum of being able to feel human, right? Like I want to be able to buy clothes to make myself feel better. I want to have a car. Like, what do you hear about all of these stories? It's like, the drug dealer, he had the cars, he had women. Yeah, that's just because people just want to feel human. They want to feel like respected human beings, and unfortunately in this society that we've built and this capitalist shit that we're in, without money, you're seen as subhuman, basically, and without opportunity, you're probably not seen at all.
Mm.
Yeah.
How do you think hip hop has a role in that? Because
Well,
it's
hip hop has given jobs and
yeah.
careers to so many people that would have been invisible, you know, and it's been a lifesaver. Like when Lupe Fiasco does hip hop save my life, like that's like a real thing, you know, like people's lives have been changed. I know like so many people who would not be here if it wasn't for hip hop. Like they would be doing crazy things right now, taking so many chances to feed their families and all of that if it wasn't for hip hop and that being like a grounding force to like release, music about your life, and for that to like in turn give you money so that you could live. Like, it hip hop has saved so many lives, man. So many lives. And, you know, the best thing we can do is just give it the proper respect of being the best we could be within the genre.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what hip hop did uniquely was it gave people the opportunity to literally say that, to say, this is what I see. This is what I grew up with. This is the environment I came from. And then people were able to be like, oh, that's common. Or I'm not the only one who's living like this. Like, okay, there's something wrong. When I hear it, there's something wrong with that. And so I think that really changed. And I think that's something that we have to hold on to in hip hop is the importance of telling your story and the importance of people being like, maybe I didn't even live it the same, but I understand the struggle. It opens my world to understand how other people live and how other people are perceived. And I think there's something so important in that.
I think so too. Like, a big part of my music is storytelling and just being able to relay a story, but also like put it in perspective of like, hey, like, if I did A or B, my life would be totally different. Like these are consequences that I did. Um, these are consequences that came about from what I did, you know? I feel like just being able to tell an authentic story of yourself is something that is super personal yet super universal as well, right? I don't know how that works, but it always works like that, right? Like the more specific you get about yourself in music, the more people are able to relate. You know, I feel like ones that you can tell who like experiences aren't theirs, I guess, when it's so general and it's like, oh, it sounds like stereotypes of, things that like we're doing. But if you're talking about this and this happened to me and all of that, and, my uncle was a fucking drunk and he was fucking punching people at family functions and stuff like that is like so specific, but like you'll be surprised at like so many people who can like relate to something like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, though, that of like truth and the importance of like the artist's journey of you finding stuff within yourself to release. Because I think everyone resonates with a good story. Like a story well told, a story that comes from somewhere within that person. And you're like, oh, that's what it is. It's just the story well told, a truthful story that you're like, it makes me sad or it makes me happy or it makes me pensive or whatever it makes me. But as long as it comes from truth and it comes from the genuine place of white gold, then of course I'm going to resonate with it and I'm going to be able to see something within myself in that story as well.
Yeah. And then also like, it's like, even if you don't see yourself in it, like you'll be able to empathize, because if it's done well, it could be something that you totally have no clue on what it is, but that's just like a filmmaker, right? Like Paul Thomas Anderson, or freaking, I don't know, like fucking an author, that's like giving you like a vivid description of something. So like, if it's done well and if it's true to what it is, I feel like it'll always cut through. No matter what, it's gonna cut through.
And it allows you to imagine yourself in that scenario.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So like for me, like with my music, I like to bring truth. I like to bring harsh truths as well. Um, I always end up like giving caveats and that type of stuff and warnings and stuff like that. But like also just make it fun. I try to just make it fun, but like also truthful and grounded.
Yeah. I ask you, when you were making your music with these artists, do you go to the studio and work with them, or are you typically like doing it separately?
Well, You Gon Learn. You Gon Learn wasn't even for M. You Gon Learn was not for Eminem at all. It was for Royce. But I did go. I went to Detroit to go work with Royce, and yeah, we worked on a bunch of stuff. I also did that like really really quick. I do all every hook that I've ever like done for M like has been so quick, like less than 20 minutes on all of them.
That's wild.
Yeah, and that includes like recording it too. Yeah, like that includes recording it. It's just sometimes you have to go with what feels good, you know. But to answer your question, not always. Like I'm not always in the studio with the artist or anything like that. Like a lot of times it's emails back and forth. I'm working from home. If they need me, I'll go. But if not, then I'll just be home.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it all sounds studio quality. That's the fascinating thing. It all sounds so crisp and so
It's
clean.
funny because like, dude, like I did the Zeus shit. That was like on $100 mic, man. Like in a basement, like no like padding or whatever. I feel like that shit's overrated, honestly. Like the technology has come so far that like you don't need to be in a soundproof booth to like do vocals or anything like that, No. Watch the Throne changed that for me. Like once I saw Watch the Throne and like they were making their songs at the Mercer Hotel in New York, I was like, what? They made this album, like most of this album, like at the hotel. So like where did they like record their thing? And they're like in the room. And I was like, holy shit. So you don't need like a booth. And ever since then I was just like, Kanye is like Jay-Z and Kanye are like my top two artists like ever. Like I think Jay-Z is the greatest. Kanye, I think he's the greatest. I think Kendrick's the greatest. Um, I think those three are like it for me. And I don't care about the beef or whatever. I love Drake too. Drake is amazing. The way he's able to convey emotion, the way he's able to make personal things universal. It's like nobody else. Like I love all of these artists. But like for me, I feel like the person who I get a lot of my whenever I work and I'm making music, I feel like I channel Kanye West more than anybody else. It always ends up sounding a little Kanye and Westy, I guess. And I mean I don't care. Like I love it. Like he's he's one of my goats. He's amazing. Like um can't tell me nothing. Like I remember my friend pulling up, like he called me and he's like, yo, Kanye got this new single, man. Like and he's like, go to this street, go to this street. I was in college. So he's like, go to this street and wait for me on the corner. I went to the he pulls up in his car and I sit and he just presses play and it's like la 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 wait till I get my money right. Oh, I was like mine, that song was like you need to stop doing music. Like it was that good that I was like you're never gonna be this good, so don't even try. You know, like that was my initial like feeling. I was like, I'm never gonna be this good. But then after I'm like, you know what? Like I can give something. Like it just energized me. But like that initial moment, it was just like, bro, give up. Like this guy's too good. Like this guy's too good. Oh man. Yeah, but like I was able to tell him that, you know, which is a blessing or whatever. So yeah, just be
So
being
did you tell Kanye that?
yeah. I was like, man, can't tell me nothing changed my life, man. Like told him the story about, my friend, playing it or whatever, and he was just like, really? Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah. Yeah. I forget what I was supposed to even answer, but
That's
I feel like
absolutely okay, man.
I meandered.
You gave more than I could ever expect. That's why we do it this way, so that you can just say whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating because I've interviewed Kid Vicious, Royce's brother.
Oh yeah, that's my guy. That's
Yeah.
my guy. He's like my brother. That's my brother. That's my brother right there.
Because yeah, I mean,
He's
again,
amazing.
yeah, before the podcast even started, Royce came and he toured in Australia. He did a small show in Melbourne. It was like very close.
So I was at the studio when he went. Like the day before he flew out, like I was at the studio. He's like, "Yo, I'm going to Australia, blah," and like he left with his luggage and everything like that to Australia. So
And I
yeah,
have a photo
I
with Kid
vividly
Vicious.
remember that.
Yeah, I've got a photo with Kid Vicious before I ever
Wow.
interviewed him. And I was like, this is like, again, it's so weird how it happens. And then I'm like, oh, when's White Gold coming to Australia? That's the real question of like, when are you going to come and do a tour?
I would love to, man. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We got to set it up, man. Like that would be amazing. I've never been to Australia, so that
Wow.
would be great. And I heard it's fucking huge because it's a freaking continent.
It is huge.
But I want to hit all of the major cities too, like Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide,
Yeah,
you know,
Brisbane.
Brisbane. Yeah, I want to hit all of them before I leave. Like I want to be able to like go for a few days. Do you know oh, I'm blanking on his name. Illy,
No.
the rapper Illy.
I know of Illy, but I've never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's Australian. And also another homie of mine is what's his name? Dude, they stole his music with the Paul Walker Wiz Khalifa record,
Oh.
and he got paid, bro, because they end up suing. I forget his why am I forgetting his artist name? What? I just know his regular name, but like forgetting his artist name. But he was amazing too, Like Australia got great artists, man. Like,
Yeah.
Australia got really, really great artists, like Empire of the Sun,
Yeah. Aussie.
freaking Tame Impala, Kevin Parker. It's fucking amazing. A lot of his shit is like how I make my music, right? Like I just do everything myself. But like it's not like I'm not doing it like to flex. Like I'm doing it because like I just love to control
Yeah.
I just want to control what I can control. Like when I do like collabs with like, not with like friends, but like if I'm doing collabs, I'm always the person that's like, I'll take the back seat as far as I'll be the servant, right? So like I'll support your ideas and try to hone in what you want or whatever so that we can make it better because it's just I've never been one to like go into like a session with another like creative and just be like, it should sound like this, and this. Like I'm always like, all right, what are we feeling? Like for me, like I can get down with any kind of vibe. So I don't have to like dictate that to anybody. You know, I feel like being like support is more it's more fun for me. You know, I guess maybe that comes with like having being a producer first. So I'm always like, all right, it doesn't have to be my vision, but it can also, be fun. So when I'm collaborating, I do that. But if like collaborating for like myself, I'm very like very picky. I'm very picky and a lot of my friends don't understand. They think that like it's easy, but it's not. I agonize over these decisions.
I can empathize with that. I think I can empathize with, if you work with others, you have to explain what you're thinking to them. You have to be able to
Yeah.
convey the idea and make sure they understand it, and then they can
Yeah.
deliver on said idea. Whereas if you control it from the start to finish, you don't have to explain the idea. You just know what you're trying to do. And so you can there's none of that miscommunication. It's pure, like, I know what I'm trying to achieve and I know that I can do it.
Yeah. And I have a few buddies that like they just get me, right? Like they understand everything. Like my buddy Destin, my buddy Maki. Those are like the two people that I collab with the most. And like they just understand like where my head is. Like I can spit out references and they're just like, oh yeah, I get it. Like it should be this way. And like Maki is like a guitar god. His ear is insane. Like he randomly like takes me to like freaking people doing classical music at like public schools in New York. I'm like, how did you find this shit? And it's just like uh, a student, student quartet or a student orchestra. And I'm like, how? I didn't even know this existed. Like he's crazy like that, right? And he works with Just Blaze. Um, he did he did the guitars on Monster.
Okay, wow.
Oh, guitar strums and all that. That's him on Monster. Um, he did some stuff on Freedom for Beyonce. Um, he's he's incredible, man. Very incredible. Um, yeah, but like those two are like amazing producers, and I just like am able to bounce ideas off of them so easy because they just know like what I like. So if I'm doing something for myself and I need like an addition to it, or oh, I can't forget about my friend Prince. Prince is also another one who's just like insane musician. He plays keys, he plays drums at his church. He freaking did the outro to Maybach Music 5 or 6. One of them, Maybach Music's. He's fucking incredible. Like his synth game is crazy. But like for me, like I think you should know, like I love bigging up my friends, man. Like I feel like my friends are so talented and they need so much like I feel like they should be so much bigger than they are because they're just so freaking talented, man. Like I would not be anywhere without them. Like being able to push me forward, being able to challenge my ideas, all of that. Like, you know, you can't do this shit by like I can make music by myself, but like I need them to like grow, Like they're just amazing, man.
Or we might have to get them on the show so we can
Yeah,
talk to
like
them and and hear their
Yeah,
story. And
dude, that would be fucking awesome. Like that would be sick.
yeah,
I'll definitely set it up with you, man, because like Maki, like he has so many stories. Like he has so many stories about like when Just Blaze was he had a studio like after Baseline shut down and they went uh to like Harlem or whatever, at Studio Red. Like he has stories about those. Like yeah, he was in the sessions with the Slaughterhouse,
oh
the
wow,
Slaughterhouse sessions and everything like that. Yeah. You know, also Rook from Justice League is that's like one of my, you know, one of my best friends, man. Like he's a big homie to me. But yeah, like obviously, you know, Justice League has done everything. You
yeah.
know, fucking legends of the game. So yeah, like I'll connect you with them too.
Yeah, please. That'd be fantastic. And
I think
yeah,
I think that'll be great.
well, this show is nothing without people like yourself and the amazing musicians. Otherwise, it would be me talking into a microphone, going insane without without all of you. So I'm always appreciative.
Yeah.
And as a fan of the music, it genuinely just brings me joy to be able to have conversations with people to be like, hey, let me see if I can understand you just a little bit more. And it's
Yeah.
incredible.
And I feel like it's important to, you know, if for an artist, like, yeah, you put all your stuff in your music and people are gonna know who you are by your music, but I also feel like it's important to have a journalist or something accompanying that, you know, so you can explain yourself better, so you can guide people through the journey as well, right? So interviews are super important in that way. And it's like we kind of lost that, you know, with people not really wanting to do interviews or whatever. But I remember when I used to get the Source magazine or Double XL, and it would be a journalist that was with Jay-Z for the last like 2 weeks of his album, and they were just shadowing him or something like that, you know, or with a band or whatever, and they would go on tour and they would like write about the tour experience, that kind of stuff. I feel like that's important and it's been lost, you
Mm.
know. But
Why do you think that got lost? Because I agree. I think the
um,
value of all of you is you're incredibly complex, and I think it's rare to be able to hear you speak unfiltered, without worry,
yeah,
or in
I feel
a
like
yeah.
journalists, some people with the internet and like chasing viral moments or whatever, it's like a business decision where people have sacrificed like telling a good story for trying to tell a quick story, right? So they're trying to catch people and with like sound bites and all of this shit so they could go viral. And that leads to that schism between the artist and the journalist because it's like you're not putting my actual vision or my actual words in some cases um into print, right? You're just kind of like editing it and making it salacious so that you can sell a few more copies, you know, so that that trust factor was kind of broken, right? Also I feel like a lot more people are anxious, you know, just generally, you know, with COVID and all of this shit. Like I feel like people are just genuinely just not really wanting to give parts of themselves anymore. You know, that's also a factor. Um, and I just feel like also like a lot of journalists really don't care. You know, they really don't care to do that anymore. Like what happened to like album reviews, right? Nobody really does album reviews because I guess streaming kind of like took that away because everybody can just stream it like right then and there. You don't have to go to the store, and there's no like staggering process of people, excuse me, people consuming the music. everybody gets it instantly at midnight, and it's like, oh, this is a classic. This is not. This is trash. Blah blah blah. And like everybody, I guess social media kind of killed it, right? Because social media, like you can just go on Twitter and type some shit, and it could go viral. And I guess you're the journalist then, because you gave your opinion on an album.
Well, the
So I
problem
feel
is
like,
it's also a 5 minute review, which is like,
yeah,
how can you review a 44 minute or an album in 5 minutes? You just can't
yeah,
do it. And
yeah,
I mean, people just aren't as patient to sit through a dissection of it anymore.
no. But it still exists. Well, the dissection thing still exists in places of like, or maybe it exists within certain artists. I don't know if it just exists in places, but um, like there's like this Spotify podcast that does like dissection, right? And they go they deep dive into the music or whatever. That has a space, you know. Um, and it's usually for artists that are like Frank Ocean's and Lord and Kendrick and Kanye, that kind of ilk, right? Um, yeah, I feel like we kind of lost that on like a ground level. And we also lost it for like up and coming artists as well, right? Like there's nobody to tell the story from outside looking in, right? A lot of times it was important for somebody to tell that Biggie story from outside looking in because, you know, it would be the view that we all kind of have, right? From outside looking in. So it'll be an approach that feels relatable instead of it just being like, all right, I'm listening to the artist and I understand the artist, blah, blah, blah. No, it's like a journalist shadowed him for a month and this is what he learned about Biggie, you know? There's certain people that like if given the opportunity to do it, like they would do it well. Like there's still a lot of great journalists. Like my guy Rob Markman is really, really good at that. Elliot Wilson is still good at that. Um, yeah, it's there, but like it's sporadic to say. I mean, it's sporadic, and I feel like the up and coming aspect is not there. Like that's all but gone. Like there's no like I forget what this thing in the source was called, where they would highlight the MCs and it's not there anymore, right? Like either like XXL does the whole like freshman thing or whatever, but like that's all politics. I'm talking about somebody that's dedicated to telling stories of up and coming artists in a way like in a way that's like very journalistic and has some integrity to it or whatever. I would shout out my friend from GQ, Fraser Tharp. He's really good at telling stories that are like not he's good at telling stories that are not like within within the mind's eye, I guess, like it's something from left field. He'll be able to he'll just like, hey, like I talked to Beyonce and we talked about this random thing, you know, or I talked to freaking Future and this is what he gave me. He gives he's able to give big artists a unique platform, so I like that about him. But like everybody else, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like you need that too to kind of like I don't know, entice the audience or whatever. I guess, because it's about the music, but it can't be all about the music. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I
like
find
LeBron plays and then he does like the post game interview. You know,
yeah, I just find all those interviews too prescriptive. I find them all so structured. Like they're all
Yeah.
so like in a box, and I find them
Yeah.
so boring and so
That's
uninspiring and
probably
so
why too.
uninteresting. Whereas
Yeah.
like, and this is why I do this the way I do it, because I have no idea what we're going to talk about. And I love that I don't know.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
means that you get to be who you are and I get to be who I am, and we get to do this
Yeah.
weird dance, and we're trying to
Yeah.
figure out if we get along at the same time as we're also doing an interview, and there is something natural that comes out of it, which is you get to just say whatever comes to your mind and you get to
Yeah.
say your opinion on things. And I think that's way more interesting than anything that I could imagine asking. Like,
Exactly.
I can't, only my imagination would be able to come up like, what would White Gold be able to talk about? That would suck. Like, that would suck.
Yeah.
Whereas you're a person who's had all these experiences, you have these views, and we'll navigate that as we talk about it. And
Yeah.
the fans will go, oh, I didn't realize that about him.
Exactly.
I didn't know that story.
I feel like I've said so many things in this interview that like I never said anywhere else, you know? So that's a good thing.
Well, that makes me incredibly privileged, and I feel extremely privileged to have you come through. As soon as I said I don't plan anything on the show, I do plan one question. It's the only question on the show. It's the last question that I'm going to ask you. But if you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
Dang.
Yeah, just to appreciate. Doesn't have to be the greatest album of all time, just to appreciate.
I would say Revolver, the Beatles. It was the album that introduced the reverse guitar to human beings. The writing is just fantastic, and For No One is my favorite Beatles record, written by Paul McCartney. Eleanor Rigby's on it. You know, yeah. Revolver is just top to bottom, just a classic. You know, it's something that people need to appreciate. It's something that people need to be aware of. The history of it as well. Like a lot of times the Beatles get a bad rap of not being like musicians, but like these guys are incredible, you know? They were incredible. And you don't have to be the most technical person or whatever to be incredible. You know, there's so many instances of that, right? Like we don't love perfection, we love imperfection, to go back to earlier, right? So yeah, I feel like Revolver is just hands down an incredible album. It's a short listen as well, so it's not gonna bog you down or inundate you with like so many things. Like it's great, man. Like I feel like the sitar was on it, that like that really wasn't heard on music at the time, and that's when George was in his Indian vibe. You know, there's just so many things about that album that's just like incredible to me. And Brian Wilson said Revolver is one of the albums that like propelled him into making Pet Sounds, which is another fantastic album, you know. And then Pet Sounds was inspiration for the Beatles to make Sgt. Pepper. So that kind of like one uppins and just upping the level of like greatness is in there. Um, Revolver is a fantastic album, and you can close your eyes and just listen to it, and it'll be done so fast. You're like, wait, what? Like, and you're just gonna like want to run it back. You know, it's just storytelling at its finest, like songwriting at its finest. Like they're funny and they're morose. You know, like they're freaking something melancholy. Like there's just so many different emotions that you can unpack there, and it's like to go back to For No One. It's just like so visceral and just like this um, kind of just like revelation of like a relationship that's not gonna work, right? And yeah, they're the best storytellers, man. Like Paul is incredible. Sir Paul McCartney, my favorite songwriter of all time.
Love that, man. Such a good recommendation. I think you're maybe the only one who's recommended the Beatles so far. So
Incredible musicians, they are in my top five. Will never leave my top five ever. Man, the Beatles. I resisted listening to them for so long because of how many people would be like, "Oh, they're so good, they're so good." I was a Stones guy. Shout out to Lucas Jagger. That's my little homie, Mick Jagger's son. Um, I was a Stones guy through and through, and I was working at Best Buy. And you know when they had first brought the Beatles discography to Apple, right?
yeah,
It was like a big thing. I forget what year it was, but it was a big thing. And they had these they had these plaques, or like it was like small plaques or whatever, and almost like gift card things, right? It was like
yeah.
gift cards. And one of my friends that worked there gifted one to me. He was like, "You need to listen to the Beatles." And I was like, "Man, fuck them. Like that shit's gonna fucking suck." And he was like, "No, like, all right, so this is like the whole discography. Like, just listen to it. Trust me, I'm telling you, you'll get it." And he made me get it. I listened to it and I was just like, why did I starve myself with this? Like, you know, and ever since then I was just like, oh, fuck, you know? I learned never to be like haughty about, you know, listening to music or whatever. Like just go in, man. Just go in. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not, you know. But like I'm gonna cheat here, but I would like Revolver, Dark Side of the Moon, um, Graduation, Reasonable Doubt, um, Exodus, Bob Marley, and Thriller, Michael Jackson are all like very important albums, man.
I love it. I love it. And speaking of important, you, my friend, doing incredible, important work. It is amazing to see what you're doing. It is awesome to be able to see and hear the music that you're coming out with. And I'm excited about what's coming next for you.
Appreciate it, man. I'll send you some music, man.
Yeah, please do. Cause yeah, it's been awesome. I've just been going through your Spotify and I'm like, oh, when are you going to have some more music videos? Cause I know I was looking at your YouTube and I know you've got some freestyles on there. So for anyone who hasn't checked those out, check out the freestyles. Cause yeah, not only do you sing, you also rap, but yeah, it's absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
This is one that I get to tick off on the bucket list. And yeah, when you come down to Australia, man, let me know because I can show you some spots.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything you wanted to shout out? Anything you wanted to plug before we finish?
Shout out my daughter, Zariah. I always got to shout her out or she'll get mad. So shout out my daughter, my manager, Dennis, my homies that I already shouted out, Maki, Prince, Destin, Rook, T minus. That's my guy. You know, we didn't really talk that much about him, but Tyler is a really, really good guy. Obviously, he's one of the GOATs, man. The motto, I'm on one, you know, sacrifices, all this shit for Drake. But yeah, those are people that just keep me grounded. Those are like genuine homies of mine. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Read. If you're gonna be an artist, read books. If you're gonna be an artist, read books. That's one thing that I always want to preach to people. Read books. It'll help you get your language up. It'll help you get your imagination up. Read books. You'll be better. Trust me. It may seem like I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. You should read.
I agree with you. I actually just got a Kindle, and it's changed my world because I can just upload books on that, and it's like it is so good.
Yeah.
I was lazy. I didn't read a lot for the past 8 years or so, and now I'm back into reading again, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know
It
why I
feels
ever
so
stopped.
good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like I could read a book in like an afternoon, you know? Like it takes me like 3 hours to read like a 300-page book or something like that. So I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. Like obviously you hear it in my diction. Um yeah. I think like that's super important if you want to be taken serious as a writer. Um and also just be nice to people. Be genuine. Don't look for transactional relationships, and be genuine with your relationship and show up. That's it.
Love that,
I
man.
guess that's the best advice I can give to people. You know.
All right. Last question, and then I promise we're actually done.
Of course.
Is there a book that you recommend for people? Is there a book that stands out for you?
Okay, so I'll recommend Slaughterhouse-Five, The Man in the High Castle, Childhood's End, and the Wool Omnibus, that series. I love a lot of sci-fi, but sci-fi is good because it deals with humanity and it deals with the problems of society. So it might seem like it's fantastical, but it's really human. That's what people like don't get about sci-fi, is that it deals with a lot of just humanity. So yeah, I would recommend those, and then just go from there, man.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in with a couple of my recommendations. 1984 is arguably my favorite book of all time. I love that book.
1984 is great.
So good. And I recently read Gone Girl for the first time. I saw the movie, but I read the book Gone Girl, and it is such a good book.
Yeah.
It is such a good book.
Really? Okay, I need to read it.
Because if you like books about humanity,
yeah,
it is literally just about people. Like it is just so good.
I need to read it. Yeah. Okay.
There we go, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you've given us today. I'm excited to, as I said, see what else you do, and I'm excited to hopefully see it down under.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I just want to thank you for, interviewing me, I guess. Or just having a conversation. Honestly, it didn't feel like an interview at all.
No, not at all.